I know a lot of people take issue with my beliefs. I'm white. I'm a Caucasian because everything about me is different from an African American. I have naturally straight hair. My hair isn't nappy. It doesn't require weave. My nose is not giant as like African Americans. My lips are perfect. They're not too big and they're not too small. Like, they're just perfect. My ears, I don't have black people ears because they're really giant. Most African Americans speak ghetto. But when it comes to black people, I think they're all ugly and I have nothing in common with them. I'm different from African Americans because I'm white. My figure is just like Kim Kardashian, and she's a wonderful role model. I act and I think like a white person instead of a black person. I believe that I'm completely and utterly better than them. Like, we're on two different levels. Like, okay, African Americans are here, I'm here. White people act and think just way more mature than African Americans. Black people, they think in a criminal way. When I think about African Americans, I feel like asking them, what is wrong with them? They're really dangerous. If an African American is on the same street as I am, I'll cross the street to avoid their chaotic, thuggish ways.
Are you okay?
I'm irritated.
I'm sorry.
I just know that I'm white. I mean, she might not know that I'm white, but I know that I'm white. I can feel it through my veins, I feel it through my blood. I tell my mom, I'll never be like any of those Negroes. My mom tries to criticize me about my supposed race. I tell her she's just ignorant. There's nothing wrong with my views or beliefs because I have freedom of speech and everything I'm saying is true.
Okay, Treasure, how are you this morning?
Pretty great. How are you?
I'm all right.
That's great.
Now, you've been listening to everything we've talked about so far,
Yes,
right?
I have.
And is there anything that your mom has said or told me about that's inaccurate, incomplete, or that you want to add something to?
Well, I mean, actually, yeah. You guys called me delusional earlier, and I feel like the only people
No, I did not call you delusional. I asked your mother if she thought you were delusional.
Yes, well, you asked her that question. I would like to clarify the fact that I am nowhere near delusional. I'm actually very capable and a very intelligent person, so.
Being delusional and being intelligent are not mutually exclusive.
Well, I feel like if you're being delusional, then you gotta be some type of retarded, and I'm not that.
Well, I have two things to say about that. Number one, that's absolutely just simply not the fact. And number two, using that word is very derogatory. So I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't use that word.
Yeah, well, okay, well, I'll understand, only because I'm a very respectful person, and if you wish that I don't use that word, then I most definitely won't use it.
Okay, appreciate that.
Okay, no problem.
When you say that you believe yourself to be Caucasian, tell me why you believe that to be true.
Well, I know I'm a Caucasian because when I wake up in the morning, I just have such a great life. And that my hair is so perfect, my skin isn't ugly, and I'm not fat also, which is also a really African American thing. So, like, I'm just nowhere near like them. And plus, they're so thug and criminal that I can't relate.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, that's just so riddled with ignorance, I don't even know how to respond.
Okay.
And I'm not saying it to be insulting. Ignorance doesn't mean lack of intelligence, it means lack of information. I think you're confusing the concept of race and ethnicity, because race is really biologically determined.
I know I'm biologically white. I feel it through my veins and through my blood. I don't just think I'm white. I know that I'm white. There's no doubt in my mind.
Even though I have told you that your father was not your father and that you are actually African American?
You might be lying. I don't trust anything that anyone else says. I know that I'm white.
Ethnicity, on the other hand, has to do with whether or not you identify with a particular group in terms of their culture and practices, beliefs, religions, things that go along with that particular group. And that has nothing to do with race. Sometimes they can overlap, but not always.
Well, I feel like you're wrong. You're completely wrong. I know who I am, and I know my race, and I'm a proud white person. And there's nothing, I feel it through my veins, like it's literally in my blood. There's no way. I don't believe that I'm white. It's not my ethnicity.
Treasure, do you?
Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick Wallace here. Here to weigh in on the video clip you just watched. And allow me first to say that the reason that I'm even weighing in on this is one of my past clients contacted me and asked me to evaluate it and give my opinion. Their question was she suffering from some type of mental illness, or was this a learned behavior? And so I took the time to look at it, did some research into trying to find the entire uh, show or segment on Dr. Phil and really evaluate it. And what I can tell you is, in my opinion, it is definitely a form of mental illness, more uh, properly known as delusional disorder, which is a form of psychosis. A psychosis is something in which a person becomes divorced from reality. The delusion is normally the inability to distinguish what is being imagined from what is real. And that is a normal activity, actually, or a normal reality of the subconscious. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what is real and what is imagined, and that works both for us and against us. It's the same reality that people who excel in life use to create a world that doesn't exist, to eventually build it and live in it. And it is also the debilitating force in which people see things that aren't real, and it really disrupts their lives. So it's in when it becomes a psychosis is when there is no awareness, in which the delusion becomes the total reality. And in this young girl's reality, she's white. This isn't someone that believes or wishes they were white. It may have started that way, but this person has convinced themselves that they're white, and they are uh, living that reality at a deep part in their lives, and really are really and truly unaware of what is happening. And it's amazing, and it's to the point with her that it's almost psychotic. And that's a little different. Psychotic is more when it's disruptive. um, it's when uh, the delusions have basically taken over and created a very, very serious situation in which that could be some, negative results outside of being considered foolish and whatever. The opinions a lot of people are developing about her. It hasn't really, and I guess, but I mean, just the idea of believing you are absolutely something that you're not, and that you are self identifying with something that is probably the most diametrically opposed to your true reality, in and of itself is disruptive and dangerous. But the other question was, you know, obviously, this is not a learned behavior in the sense that someone taught her to say she's white and to believe she's white. I believe that her environment created an idea that being white was better, and I'll talk about that briefly. And in that, she developed such a need and demand to not be who she was. She became what she aspired to be the most. And we have this in varying degrees. Most people deep down inside know, most blacks know they're not white, but you got a lot of blacks that'll get as close as they possibly can. You got blacks bleaching their skin, blacks voting just solely based on the idea of what most whites would consider to be the right vote, acting um, against their own best interest to self-identify with another group predominantly white. And this is all birthed from, at the core, a level of self-hatred. And that self-hatred is produced from a number of different mechanisms, all having multiple machinations that lead to the idea that black is inferior and white is superior. It starts with racism. It starts with classism, racism, colorism, propagandized images and ideas of what black is, and the educational system, where there's a constant influx of ideas of superiority in intellect, superiority in culture, and all of these different things that make white look right and make black look bad. And if we're not careful, the exposing of our youth at early ages to these ideas and these forces will lead to the consistent form of self-hatred that we've seen. We've seen this in numerous experiments and studies over the last 70 years. The doll experiment, where kids were asked which doll was most beautiful, and regardless of the race of the child, the white doll was always chosen predominantly, and that's because the kids, even the kids who were black, believed that they were ugly in comparison. The terminology used when defining black hair. Black hair is bad hair, white hair is good hair. The closer you get to having white hair, the more people say you have good hair. There's no such thing as good and bad hair. You have a texture of hair that is directly associated with your origin and the environments and the exchanges that have taken place to lead to who you are as an individual. So in essence, there is actually a lot of positivity in the makeup of black hair and it being in its natural state. And from a position of cosmos and spirituality in the universe, and so much more. And beauty is simply a perspective or a perception based on an environmental thought or idea. And when you're in a westernized culture that is predominantly led and headed by Europeans, then the idea of beauty is created by Europeans. It's a Eurocentric idea of what is. And I'm very big on teaching against this Eurocentric idea in whatever capacity it exists. The Eurocentric idea of what's classy, the Eurocentric idea of what's beautiful, the Eurocentric idea of what's professional, all of these things that are constantly used to govern how we operate and move around in this world is governed from a Eurocentric idea. And being that our origin is not that of Europe, of a European, it doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve us emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, financially, culturally, or politically. And so we have to develop a sense of self and understand who we are. That's why teaching children at an early age who they are and to show them the beauty inside of them and to instill it and inculcate it into their psyche at such deep levels that it can't be shaken by all of uh, the different stimuli and forces that are around them that inundate them with an idea of white superiority. And this is another reason why I am a firm believer that you cannot, and I repeat, not overexpose young black children to predominantly white environments when they don't have a sense of self, because they are gaining a sense of who they are through what they're being exposed to. So at some point, it would be my guess, and I haven't, obviously had a chance to sit down with this young lady. But what I can gather from observing her and just watching her mannerisms, how she sees things, she has been heavily conditioned and socialized to believe the worst about blacks, to believe the best about whites. And it created such a strong desire for her to be of the higher state, and which is the natural aspiration of every person. You want to be in the best possible group. You want to be identified with the best. And so the self-identifying with what you see as the best and no interference with that has led to her doing it at such a level that she now believes she is. And it's going to be easy to come at her. It's going to be easy to sit up and accuse her of all forms of things. But to me, when you're dealing with mental illness, you have to deal with it with an understanding that we're not dealing in reality. We're dealing with an issue that has to be confronted based off of what created it. And so while you can call her a coon, you can call her whatever you want to call her, you've got to understand that you don't get to places like that through coincidence, through happenstance, that's a process of going through some things. And then the problem is, because self-hatred is so prevalent within the black community at different levels, colorisms, you got dark people taking shots at light people thinking they're better than dark people, light people feeling more of an affinity to whites than they do their black sisters and brothers. And you've got all of this, and it's even within families where the darker side doesn't deal with the lighter side and vice versa. All of these things are happening in reality in a consistent manner, in this country and abroad. And you can see it in the way that Dominicans treat Haitians. And anyone that knows the history of that knows that both have a connection to Africa. That there is an African descent now because one population decided to whiten itself by inviting Europeans in. It wants to disconnect from its blackness because, again, the idea that white is better is so prevalent. And that's the idea that's created. It's so powerful when you expose someone to something that says this group is better and that group is not, and they exist from the group that is considered of an inferior manner or inferior state, then there's a problem. It is up to us to educate our children. It is up to us to raise the level at which our children engage this world around them. I have said many times when I wrote The Miseducation of Black Youth in America, when I wrote Born in Captivity, Psychopathologies of legacy of slavery. One of the things I've said most is that it's going to be important that we properly and holistically educate our children. What does that mean? That means that we prepare and empower them to go out into a world that is inherently hostile towards them and win, compete and win, be engaged and win, be proud of who they are, have a force and a commitment and a relationship and an understanding of who they are at a level that drives them to stand and fight for their own interests. See, as much as this young lady believes she's white, at the end of the day, she's going to be treated by the system as a black person. She's going to be handled by a black person. And because of the levels of her delusion, she's going to be treated probably even worse because people are going to uh, marginalize her beliefs, ridicule her, attack her, and she won't find common ground with anybody. Whites are not going to accept her. Blacks don't want anything to do with her because she's denounced them and she has this horrible opinion of who they are. What will she find a place at? So this delusion is going to create this world that doesn't receive her, and then as a social creature, she's going to struggle. And that's just the bad side. So, when I create programs like Black Men Lead, Music is Life, things that give an environment that help to socialize young Black minds into understanding the power that exists inside of their mind, the beauty that exists inside and outside of who they are in their Blackness. It's important. It's a part of the socialization process that establishes the foundation for them to stand up and be and become. And so when I see that, I see a failure. I see the failure from the parents. I see the failure from the community. I see at some point an idea. And listening to the mom, there's a point where she says, I've tried to explain to her that her father isn't her father, which can be confusing. And I understand that if you're married to somebody, and I'm a believer of this, you don't necessarily tag the bonus parent as a step because of the negative connotation, but you need to be very clear about the origin because that's the sense of identity. A man is the sense of identity for his offspring, for his progeny. And when there's confusion, there's a problem. So by that, we also gather that mom was married to a white guy at some point. Well, then again, here's the introduction of then mom chose somebody that's different than her. So then that must mean that she went for what was best. And again, this isn't so much talking about the impact. I've already gave my opinion on the impact of interracial marriage. This isn't about that. This is about how we are teaching our kids to identify because the world will identify them. And if they don't like the identity, they may choose on an extreme move to identify with the opposing force. And there's no win in that because that force will not accept you. And the world will look at you in an awkward way because you are presenting a reality that everyone else can tell isn't true. And so it's so much going on there, but it's a failure on so many levels of us not doing what we need to do to properly engage our kids and give them a sense of identity that they can be proud of, a sense of identity that they can find power in, a sense of identity that gives them a sense of self and uniqueness that is competitive with their white counterparts. And that's what I give. So I don't have anything judgmental to say. I've heard some very, very, very and read some very, 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 extreme critiques. And I would guard or I would warn those who are watching this to be careful in understanding we're dealing with a 16-year-old, and for her to be at that particular of an extreme or polar opposite of the true reality in identifying by race, there's a lot going on in her life. She's 16. This isn't some 30-year-old woman or 40-year-old woman that's just out there and refusing to see reality. This is a kid whose mind is not uh, totally developed in certain senses. Now, the upload she got from age uh, 0 to 7 years has obviously had a major impact. And that can be extreme too when you're talking about that theta state that you're in from birth until 7 years, where you're constantly uploading the information that will teach you how you're going to engage life. Obviously, some of the things she identified with, some of the things in the signs she was sending and how she was interpreting it wasn't being read correctly, interpreted correctly by parents and teachers and other people. And here she is with this alternate reality that has consumed her life. So, uh, what I would take from this is we've got to do a better job of properly socializing our kids. With that being said, I'm going to jump off of here. I think that I've made the point. I think that we can see the dangers in something like this. And another thing is, we have to look at, even in a situation like this, the propaganda system is giving a negative image of us. And we constantly find that we are reading who we are by a false narrative presented by mainstream media that makes us want to get away. I mean, how many times are you in the presence of your own people and you don't feel comfortable because of the images that have been portrayed by mass media, by mainstream media? And we have really and truly no means through which to actually counter it or confront it and present a new truth, a new narrative, something more realistic in the idea of presenting who Blacks really are. That the vast majority of us are honest, that the vast majority of us are very caring, that the vast majority of us are hardworking, and that we are not criminals. We are not naturally violent. We are not all these things that we're portrayed to be in mainstream media that present an image not only to people who are looking to see who we are and determining whether they will be allies or not, but to our own offspring that are determining who they are and seeing nothing but negativity and not wanting to identify with it. That is huge. We've got to be more at the forefront of presenting a new idea of who we are as Blacks. That's something that we have to be willing to do. So, with that being said, I'm going to check off of here. You guys have an unbelievable day. As I always say, live your life on full and down eat. That's what I'm going to do.